Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Cornerstone Conversation. This is a little corner of the internet where we discuss in an authentic, honest, and open manner issues that matter in life. My name is Damaris Aguayu. I am the founder of Kazini, and I'm joined by Tazim Elkington, who I'll give a moment to introduce herself. Hey, Tazim.
Thank you, Dama. Tazim Elkington, known as the Indian Black Butterfly. I am an authentic leadership trainer, culture and change management trainer, hypnotherapist, regression therapist, talk therapist, writer, speaker, and that's it.
Yep. Thank you. So this week we're talking about responsibility, taking responsibility. So I'll just let you start. When you hear the word responsibility, what does this mean to you personally?
So for me, responsibility means that I am in charge of what I think, what I say, what I do, what action I take, and understanding that every part of that has consequences, good, bad, and ugly. And that I'm responsible to ensure that I make decisions that are informed and that I deal with the consequences, whatever they are, as they show up, without blame to another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether it's in the thinking, in the speaking, or the action.
Yeah. I like the words you used, without blame to another, because we live in a society where it's always easier to blame others, to blame situations, to blame the government, to blame the church, to blame God, to blame our parents for everything that's going on or wrong in our lives. But you've said very clearly that it is about taking responsibility without blaming others. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
So, for example, anyone that's growing up and is within their, I'd say, up to their 20s, because it's part of our socialization that we're brought up in a very violent way. We're brought up in a very destructive way, because this is part of our generational baggage that we've been carrying. Mm-hmm. So from one generation to another, there's been violence, there's been pain, there's been hurt, there's all this stuff has come from generations and generations. So in the first 20, 25, even maybe up to 30 years of our lives, we are accumulating all of this stuff. However, by the time a person gets to 25 and going towards their 30s, they need to understand that this is just part of the human script. And they have to choose whether they want to keep living and reiterating that generational baggage, or whether they want to step out and start carving different paths. And that can only happen when you take responsibility and you realize that even your parents with, I was beaten, I beat my children to a certain age, because this was part of that generational thing. And then I had to wake up to the fact that the consequences and the impact of that was very, very destructive. And I apologized to them. I had conversations about it with them. And to this day, we still have conversations about it, because it was something I didn't know. I didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. However, when I woke up and I realized that this is not the way to do it anymore, we had to have those conversations, and I apologized as a parent. And mostly parents feel they mustn't apologize to their children, as an example. And I said to them, yes, I made mistakes, or I didn't know any better, which is not a waiver. And now that I've realized, and we have the conversation, I've apologized, and we move beyond it, and we see what other ways of living there are. So we've had conversations about so many aspects on this. This is from a personal place, yeah? And admitting to it, admitting that I was within that same human script of destruction. So when we talk about responsibility, it's taking responsibility, first of all, to say, whatever happened, happened because it was just the repetition, the cycles, the patterns, the habits, and I didn't know how to change them. When I did realize I can change them, it's then about taking responsibility and saying, that's not where I want to live anymore. That's not how I want to live anymore. That means that you have options to behave, to think, to speak, to behave in different ways, and to change those patterns. Because ultimately, if you look at that generational thing, it will bring a partner that will carry on with the same destructive patterns, and then we transfer them to our children. And then those children have to wait until they're much older to realize, this is not working. So blame does not work. People need to understand that blame does not work. Blame is a cop-out because it's always pointing the finger at someone else, at something else, rather than taking responsibility. So responsibility and blame are two sides of the same coin, and people have to realize that they need to decide which part they want to live on. Do they want to live on the coin that says responsibility, or the opposite side, which says blame? Because if you're blaming, you will never be responsible.
Yeah, and it's about taking control of your own life, right? This is what I'm hearing you saying, that it's taking your destiny in your hands, as opposed to leaving it to external people or circumstances and that kind of thing.
So with words, I'm very particular. Control is not a good word, because control means that then you are controlling it. We can't control anything. We're not in control. It's more like taking charge of one's life and making decisions that are different from the past.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, for me, I'm not, I guess, the language also plays a role in it, especially with you, wherever you're concerned. But it's true. It is about taking charge, and I think we mean the same thing. Where once you do have that, you have taken charge, then isn't it also then easier to also deal with things, because you know that this is something that I'm equipped to handle. Do you follow what I mean?
Yeah, the decision to make different choices is already the first step in the right direction. However, are you equipped can be a question mark, because how do you equip yourself when all you know is what you know? So the point is, how do you get information? How do you actually start to re-equip, literally, unlearn to learn new ways? Which means that requires work, because there is tons of information on our internet. All of that information is not valid. A lot of the information is valid, which can give you some support, some ways to learn new ways. That's the first step. The other step is to go and have therapy, of course, because like I keep saying, everybody needs therapy. And I watched an interview this week with Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama. It kind of resonated, and I thought, you know, it's amazing. Two powerful women on the stage discussing personal stuff. And I watched it, and I was so glad I watched it because I don't watch that much. And Oprah has always been a cool lady, eh? So I watched that interview, and I was amazed that Michelle Obama came out openly to state that her and Barack went for therapy while they were at the White House. So if people in those positions take the responsibility to state that they needed therapy, not just for their relationship, but for their personal stuff, to realize that even their programming was off, and they're highly educated, they're in those high positions. And if they can admit to something like that, why are we making getting help such a taboo? Actually, in society or in the world, asking for help is like, it's a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's a strength to actually acknowledge that I am just a little speck and I need some help. And what's wrong with that?
Yeah. And just to be clear, you have also gone for therapy yourself, right?
No.
Okay.
I didn't go for therapy myself because as I was growing up, there was no therapy available. Okay, the types of counseling was so backward, and they still are. There's a lot of counseling and therapy that's backward. So we've got to be very mindful of that. That's why you have to choose your therapist very mindfully. And it wasn't available. I had to do this on my own. I didn't go for therapy. What I did do was, when I did my hypnotherapy and regression course, we had to do the therapy then. So within that learning process, we had to work on our issues. However, by then, which was 6 years ago when I did my courses, before that, I had already done 25 years of self-work. I'd attended very few workshops. But the self-therapy per se, I found ways of doing the work on myself, because think about this. My mother left when I was 3 years old. I had to learn at a very young age that I had to deal. And so in a way, my mother gave me a gift, and my father wasn't present. So they gave me a gift by being absent, that I had to grow up very quickly, and I had to find ways and learn ways of how to deal with situations and circumstances. And that, instead of growing up in this cozy home with two parents, etc., I was left literally to grow. I wasn't brought up. I was with this, with that, the other. So that actually gave me the opportunity to either complain and blame, and which I did for a few years, for up to a certain age, and then realizing no, it doesn't work like that. So a lot of my stuff is very much self-taught, self-experienced, self-understood.
Okay, so let's now go back to your experience with your mom leaving you when you were 3 and your dad not being present. You said that at first, obviously, you blamed them a lot for that situation and every situation you've probably found yourself in. So now I'm assuming that at this point, you no longer blame your parents for your mom for leaving you at 3. Do you?
I didn't blame my mother or my father for many years. By the time I was a teenager, I already realized, man, I was lucky that I had been able to have all these experiences, that a lot of them were very painful, very tough on a small child. However, I realized, yeah, but that was the script I decided to grow up in or be born in, or that was my life choice. So no, I don't blame my parents at all. I don't blame. I actually thank them, and I used to thank them from decades ago. That I didn't grow up in the human, that script that most people grow up in, because it gave me some sort of freedom to look beyond the beliefs that are created, the layers of beliefs of life, of color, of race, of tribe, of religion, of how life is supposed to be. I wouldn't be who I am today if I had grown up in a traditional home.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
I'm pretty revolutionary, and I'm pretty rebellious. And I wouldn't have been all of that had I been brought up in that little box.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm outspoken, and I'm challenging for a lot of people, and I wouldn't be otherwise. I wouldn't want to be otherwise. So those experiences actually added to the flavor of my life.
Yeah, I think that's really the big takeaway from taking responsibility for me is I wouldn't be where I am without those experiences that I've gone through. So there's really no point in blaming people when you're going through, or situations, because those are the things that make you who you are. Those are the things that make you have those like life experiences and become who you are eventually. So blaming is really quite pointless in that respect then. It's
yes, because
it would be more gratitude actually than blaming, I would say. Yeah.
No matter how tough it was, because let me tell you honestly, Dama, you know a little bit about me. You know me some, yeah. You know that it's I'm not your regular person. And I'm not, you're not going to have regular conversations with me about stuff that doesn't matter. If you're going to have conversations with me, it'll always be with substance, right? So the fact that we blame rather than look at the experience and what we've learned from it is what is making people so stuck. Why did this happen in your life, and what did you learn from it? Okay, so somebody was mean to you, somebody was nasty to you. All right, so what does that mean about your life? What does that mean to make sure that those kind of situations you come out of and you learn something from it? Because ultimately, people are so attached to having more, buying more, becoming successful, becoming rich, becoming this, take all of that shit away, because there's no other way of putting it. And let's look at it from a very basic point. Life is about experiences. And every experience happens in order for people to learn something, or not learn, or unlearn. All right. So if we look at each experience, and rather than multiplying those experiences that were really shenzi, because there's no other word to put for it, okay? And all those experiences that were shenzi, that were like this, that were painful, that were and living in that space, rather look at it and say, okay, so that was that experience. And what did I contribute towards that? As a child, you can't really say much, okay? But as an adult, you have to take responsibility and say, okay, so how did I contribute to that? Most people don't want to take responsibility, because taking responsibility means accepting that you have played a part in creating some of those very sticky, unpleasant situations. A hand can't clap with one, you can't clap with one hand. So when there is something, it's never one-sided.
Yeah.
And taking responsibility means, so how much poison did I add to that situation? How much crap did I add to that situation? And what do I need to shift about myself? And this is why responsibility is such a huge issue, because that means, and it's not about self-blame either. Blame, when I talk about not blaming other people, it's also not blaming the self, because most of the time as we're going through the trajectory of life, we don't know any better. We don't, because, you know, we weren't taught. It's only through each experience that we can learn. And if we don't learn through each experience, we keep repeating, and then we keep blaming. So it's also learning to be a little bit kinder and a bit more patient, that, you know, I didn't know any better.
Absolutely.
I used to be a feisty fireball. I still am. Please don't worry about that one.
I can attest to that.
So, however, I used to also have a lot of anger, and I used to have a lot of pushback in not a very nice way. And I had to learn that that was not the way to deal with life. Being angry was, first of all, harming me, and then I was harming others. What was I angry with? I had to examine that. I was angry because because when I got married, my life was not like, you know, what were the books we used to read? You know, wasn't that beautiful love story?
Meals and Boons. Meals and Boons.
That one.
Yeah.
And then I was angry that, you know, I was so invested, and that my partner wasn't. Well, my partner wasn't taught how to be invested. He was from a socialization where men were not supposed to be involved with a relationship. They were there to provide in a very traditional, old-fashioned way. And it was a different script. So if he wasn't equipped, and it was his responsibility to get equipped, and as much as I said to him, he didn't. And so I left. And so I blamed him for a while, and then I had to get over that shit too.
Yeah.
So again, also the other thing that really interrupts life is our unrealistic expectations. Because we have these ideas in our head, and then our experience of what we've observed. So for example, if you grew up in a home, which is rare, where your parents got along and it was healthy, most homes are very dysfunctional and unhealthy. Let's just, because when we talk about the generational patterns, right? But if you did grow up in a home that was functional and healthy, to the most part, then your expectation is that you will find a partner that will do the same. No, because you haven't examined your partner properly before you actually got him into your life. The first thing that attracted you to your partner was, you know, physical attraction. And that overtakes everything else. We don't examine the kind of people we bring into our lives. And so that's at an intimate level, and then we talk about friendships. We don't examine the people that we start calling friends, and we don't ask them what their value system is and why they want to be friends with us. We just fall into these things. And then we have these friends that suck the energy out of us, drain us, or we have possibly good friends we can have great conversations with. But if we look at the friendship part, actually, that's another very misdiagnosed situation. We ought to be friends with someone because we went to school with them and we know them for 30 years. No, we don't. Okay, these are just people you carry for the rest of your life. There is no need for it. So if you don't start to examine all the aspects of your life and the people you have in your life, because the people you have in your life show who you are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you said so much there. I just feel like, yeah, it's digressed a little bit, but I think it all still goes back to the point that we are all ultimately responsible for our own lives. So what is then what would your advice be for that first step to start taking responsibility for anybody who might not have been doing it previously?
So firstly, stop blaming anybody. And stop waiting for God to fix it for you. Because this is your responsibility.
Yeah.
Your responsibility is to start learning to be responsible, which means really accepting things as they were, really understanding that whatever's happened in your life cannot be changed. Your past cannot be changed. What you can really change and take responsibility for is the perception of your past, which means that you start by accepting that it was the way it was. If you have the potential to have open, honest conversations with those people to say, this is how I felt as I was growing up. Like my kids, they tell me straight up, and sometimes it's a shock. You know, however, I have to accept that because that's the way I brought my kids up. That they have to be able to say what they feel, no matter how painful it is, or no matter which role it affects. And, you know, the mother role is so, what's the word? It's so sacred. And when someone's poking that role, because that's the role they affect when they speak to me, I have to step away from the role and allow them to express and accept it from a person point of view, rather than becoming very, very protective of that mother role, because I'm not that mother anymore. I'm not the mother who brought them up when they were children. I'm a different person today.
Yeah.
So I have to step away. And to step away is not an easy thing, yeah? And to give that space to say, all right, I screwed up. Yeah, I screwed up. And I'm really sorry. I am really, really sorry. I didn't realize it affected you that way. I didn't realize that that's the harm I caused you. And what can we do now to move beyond that? And is it's not, you know, even the words I'm sorry are used in such a bland way. But when I say I'm sorry, I mean it from inside. I don't use those three words easily. I use them when they're very, very necessary. And when I say I'm sorry, it means I am not going to repeat the same thing. You know how many people say I'm sorry, and the next week they say I'm sorry, and the next week they say I'm sorry, and the next month and the next year, and they don't change anything. I am sorry means I will not do that again.
Yeah.
And those kind of conversations now move situations to a different place. And people with young children have got to engage to start this way of behavior and apologize to their small children, so that their small children already put parents on a pedestal, and when they realize that their parents are human, can apologize, accept that they have harmed. I mean, I say sorry to my grandchildren, and I have no issues with it. And it's amazing how that helps the trust grow.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do that with my small children. I have no problem with that at all. Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Yeah, so
Responsibility is a lot of things put together. It's not just one pot with a beautiful bush of astamerias or daisies. It's a whole garden, because with it comes acceptance, with it comes honesty, with it comes trust, with it comes respect, with it comes, no blame. It's a whole garden. So we can't just hold responsibility on its own. It's a collective of many different things that feed into it.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've exhausted the topic. Unless you have anything to add.
Not really, we've just touched on it.
Well, I think we've exhausted the understanding of the topic, if you know what I mean. Like, it's very clear, take responsibility. What do you need to do to take responsibility? Stop blaming other people. Yeah. And and change within yourself, like work on yourself. Yeah. Okay.
It's always about the self.
Yes. It's always goes back to the self. Yeah. Once we understand that, then I guess that's a running theme, really. Every aspect of life feeds into that.
Yes, and most people are running away from themselves, not towards themselves.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like we're out of time now, but we will, we'll be together again in a month, where we'll be talking about parenting, or rather unparenting. Yeah, which I really look forward to. So,
all right, Dama.
Okay.
Always great speaking to you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Guys, it's been great. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to our channel, and look forward to some previous episodes we've done and many more to come. Thank you for your time. Bye for now. Bye, Tazim. Bye.
Bye.